to tell the same story, but he uses verses. He does it in poetry, and he sings this chanting. So we're right at that point. And so we get the same teachings, but what's really interesting is what's different, because it's not exactly the same. And there are people, students of the Avatamsaka, who will tell you that in terms of the actual text, originally it was chanted. The verses came first. And then later on, they expanded it into ordinary prose. So that's interesting for some people. But after we touch the last piece of the prose, then we have a story. We tell stories tonight about our pilgrim, Master Xuanzang, the great hero whom nobody knows about. If the world were a righteous place, everybody would know the name of Master Xuanzang, because what he did as a Chinese Buddhist monk, going to India and bringing back the sutras, and going to Nalanda and studying Sanskrit, becoming the champion debater of all India in a place where that's like the Super Bowl. That's how well you could debate. He out-debated everybody. And he made disciples of kings and rulers and bandits, and then as he traveled, he kept a journal, kept a diary, and he recorded everything he saw, everywhere he went, and it was so accurate, the government of India used it as their official geography for years and years, centuries, because why? Nobody else went there. Nobody else went to the places where he went. So our Chinese Buddhist monk became a geographer, the official geographer for India. Furthermore, he went past the place called Bamiyan, where those giant, huge Buddha sculptures stood. He reported those, which is Afghanistan. And then later, we found out at the end of the 20th century that the Taliban used rockets and missiles and destroyed, blew them up. They had been standing ever since Master Xuanzang saw them. So there's all kinds of tie-ins with this teacher and the real world. So what an amazing Buddhist monk he was. And yet nobody knows about him. Why? You can't spell his name. The name begins with an X and finishes with a Z. Xu Yuan Za. Nobody can say it. So it's like, oh yeah, we call him Tripitaka. We call him Monkey King. So very funny. So anyway, that's what we're going to do. And the story that I told last time is so good. It's the central story of the whole biography. So I'm going to tell it again because it's a miracle. There's a miracle that happens. Guanyin Bodhisattva intervenes, saves his life. So I'm going to tell that story again. We're trying to get everybody so you can see the text and hear it also. That's why we're slow getting started here. 就说今天晚上这个十回香品我站起来就介绍给大家可以看到我，因为我一坐下你们看不到，对不对？所以呢我就现在等他们连接好了我就坐下。那个十回香品呢，第六回香快讲完了，长行等一等。这个金刚幢菩萨要改，他要从长行改到重诵。重诵呢，就是唱的或者诵的，或者引的，有个调子有人说那个长行是以后才把重诵说的长一点，把它fill in the blanks 这样子。重诵呢，当然简单了，优雅。然后呢，这是最早就是有这个唱的佛经然后呢就变成重诵那个长行这样子，是不是这样子我们都不知道，不过有这么一个理论呢OK， 然后呢今天晚上我们就继续讲那个玄奘大师的故事，他的自传太动听了。 Okay, good. How's that? We have 80 friends joining us from around the world waiting to what's going on? What's going on? Okay. 你们网上的朋友们 let's see, 他们不能 they can't answer us to tell us if they can hear, so they can't send a text here.
身体，为此法会及一切众生，平凡妙法论，教导我们如何了生活是离苦得乐，诸正无生。Some glory, great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, we turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and bliss and birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo saranto suchedoye alahudi samya samputoshe.
Namo saranto suchedoye alahudi samya samputoshe.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿皆如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. 师父上人，各位师兄，大家阿弥陀佛 Venerable Master Dharma friends, welcome to our sutra lecture. We got a rocky start, but we're trying to do something ambitious, and sometimes the gods of technology just don't cooperate. So we will let go of some of our network connections and get right into the sutra. 那么因为那个科技呢，今天晚上我们还有一些脸上不脱伤，脸上不脱，所以呢就不用了，我们就继续深入经藏，目的是要智慧入海。Okay, Avatamsaka Sutra, let's do an invocation. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Huayan Jing. We saw hundreds of people this morning doing the Chaoshan, bowing from the mountain gate all the way to Buddha Hall. Very inspiring. And this is the melody that we use. We're saying homage to the Buddha's Flower Garland Sutra, of great expanded teachings, and the ocean-wide Flower Garland Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. 今天早上有几百个就很发心的修行人从大山们就三步一拜朝山到了佛殿来，他们一边拜一边唱这个调子。那我们唱7遍 ，Ready？ Namo Ta Fang Guang Fo Huayan Jing， 华严海会佛菩萨。Namo 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 Ta Fang Guang Fo Huayan Jing， 华严 菩萨 One more time. 南无大梵广佛华严经华严海会佛菩萨 Okay. Now, in Australia, there's a really, I call it noble practice, which is acknowledging country. That is to say, you put yourself on the land where you are and connect yourself to the people from the past, the present, and on into the future. So we'll do that here. Here it was the Pomo people. So we say the Pomo people practice spiritual connections to the earth and all creation here on their ancestral land for tens of thousands of years. Today, we acknowledge them as traditional custodians and original storytellers of these lands. We offer our respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and all First Nations people whose sovereignty was never ceded. 就说 Pomo 人在他们祖先的土地上修炼着他们与土地和万物的精神联系，已有数万年。今天我们承认他们是这个土地的传统监护人和原始讲故事的人，并且向他们过去、现在和新兴的长老们表示敬意，以及主权所威迫，让所有第一民族人民们表示敬意。Then, when Shifu was explaining sutras at Old Mountain and here at CTDB, he taught us the bell song. And I remember the first Bhikshuni Heng Yin, Lani Bauer, came up with a really nice melody. Then we kind of just let it go. We forgot about it. And it was Madalena who not long ago said, hey, you're not doing the bell song. That was always part of the opening liturgy before your lectures. So why don't you do it again? So I don't have a bell here with me, but we can get you the tune. Pretty soon we'll have a nice bell to go with it. 师父以前在讲经之前有一个仪式，就是众山鸡，然后我们有一个好的英语的调子，那个中文的调子很隆重哦，我唱不出来，恐怕你们都会听得不是这样子，所以呢，英文的可以的，所以今天晚上没有钟，下一次我们带来，可是给大家这个意思我们会记得，这也是这个仪式的一部分。Okay, so it goes like this. The bell sound wide resounds throughout 100 million worlds. The Buddha's law is heard and spread all throughout the triple world. The wondrous sounds that everywhere fill the Dharma realm with peace. May those who hear it gain the strength to follow in faith the Buddha's path. And you go 众生传3000界内，佛法让万亿国中，功训启法界和平，利益报他诺后德。Okay, so we just did all of the ceremonies that we use to begin the sutra lecture, and it's nice to have our lecture set on solid traditional footing, right? This is, Shifu wanted us to accord, but if you only accord and you kind of forget the way things were done, that's not it either. It's not, you can't acknowledge country, you can't acknowledge your tradition that way. So it's always a balance between the way it used to be done and the way people need to hear it now. We are in a time where the attention span has just physically shrunk. TikTok videos last a few seconds, and then you swipe to the next one. So when we say, okay, we're going to be talking for 90 minutes about a text that's 2,000 years old, people go, not me, bye, no thank you. So how do we accord in a way that allows people to hear the right Dharma with respect, in a way that they can absorb it, that it makes sense to them, and yet we don't turn our backs on our tradition. That's always a challenge. So Shifu was a great innovator. He was a reformer. And the most important thing is that people understand. So how do we do that? That's up to your wisdom. Your wisdom of expedient means, okay? Your 善巧智慧方便. That's how much, if that do you have, that depends on what else you do when you cultivate. How much samadhi do you use to inform your wisdom? So, okay, 就说我们现在刚刚有请法，然后开经机，然后认识这个恭敬那个土地，还有那个众生机，种种的方便，一是开始这个讲经说法，这都是传统的方法，传统的做法。那个天台教官呢，师父要我们尊重就介绍到这个新的文化、新的时间。可是呢，一般呢很长，拉很长。现在的人，21世纪的人，他们那个都TikTok 怎么说呢？就有几秒钟，然后就换了，几秒钟又换了。他们的注意力，他们的那个能集中这种定力，短的又短。可是我们就说90分钟听经，他们就等不了。所以呢，我们要换心可是呢，尊久我们就恭敬原来的传统的方法。可是呢，随缘不变，不变随缘。师父玄华上人是一个改革、改良、改善的一个合乎与时俱进的一个大善知识，所以呢，我们不断地希望尊重传统，可是呢，给大家一个他们可以接受。重要是什么？沟通，明白说法。Okay, here's our text. Dun, dun, dun. Let's go. Here's the Avatamsaka Sutra. How cool is that? Okay. Ready? Palms together, please. I'll give you a line and you give it back to me. That's the way we used to do it here in the 10,000 Buddhist Hall. Okay, 我就说一句，大家跟着说一句，请各位合掌。Palms together, please. Here we go. Ready? 佛子，菩萨摩诃萨，如是回向时，此为随顺佛住，随顺法住，随顺智住，随顺菩提住，随顺意住，随顺回向住，随顺境界住，随顺情 let's see, that's just the 情恒随顺恒住，随顺真实住，随顺清净住。There we go. Ready? Disciples of the Buddha. When bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, make dedications in this way, they abide in accordance with the Buddha, with the Dharma, with wisdom, with bodhi, with principle, with dedication, with states, with practices, with reality, and with purity. Okay, so the thing about the Avatamsaka is it always comes in tens. Whenever there's a list of something, you get 10 of them. And in this case, what we're wrapping up the sixth transference. And the sixth transference in the Avatamsaka, when you have 10 things, you put them in line with the paramitas. So the first thing will be in accord with giving. The second item will be in accord with virtue, precepts. The third with patience, the fourth with vigor, the fifth with dhyana, the sixth with samadhi, with prajna, with dhyana, the sixth with prajna. This is number 6, transference. So in this in this transference, the Bodhisattva has been using his wisdom. What happens at this point is ordinary duality, true, false, right, wrong, up, down, male, female, night and day, it flips. When you get to number 6, what does that mean? It means you've been through number 5. And what is number 5? That's samadhi. You've been meditating until emptiness has happened. You've actually seen through the body's rigid solidity, and the earth, air, fire, and water of the body start to become just atoms. I don't know, I'm talking through my hat. It's not my state, but that's what I understand happens. So you meditate until your samadhi starts to really change your outlook. And at a certain point, you can see how duality is just a construct. It's just one way of looking at the world. When you get to part 6, the prajnas, you can use the Buddha's vision and ordinary vision at the same time. So that's a deep, profound state, and yet that's where the Bodhisattva is at this point. So this is true for the 10 practices. At the 6th, big change. The 10 grounds at number 6, big change. The Bodhisattva is able to use his mind like a mirror. Until this point, from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps of the 10, the Bodhisattva's been like getting to making progress by chopping things up. It's called a discriminating mind, like languages. Oh, you have to learn the grammar, you have to learn the vocabulary, you have to learn the sounds, right? Well, when you get to 6, you don't discriminate, you reflect. The mind becomes like a mirror, and duality is no longer your playing field. It's no longer the coin of the realm. You can use it. You can still enter the world and talk like a normal person, but your mind can reach to wisdom that sees the way the Buddha sees. So it's a very different state. And that's where our Bodhisattva is now. And he's transferring, dedicating merit with this perspective on it. So he's very different experience for the cultivator. And yet, how did he start? How did she start? By saying, 愿以此功德庄严佛净土, transferring just like normal, like we always do. Today, after the precepts and the refuges, we did 受归功德殊僧行, transference. And we start with that, but after a while, you get good at it. You do it so much, your mind is so refined that even without moving a thought, you can send out all that goodness and direct it to wherever you want to go. And your mind is so free from obstacles and attachments that the merit that you send out just goes far and wide. So that's where the Bodhisattva is now. And it says, as he does it, what does he do? He does his dedications in accordance with Buddha, Dharma, wisdom, Bodhi, principle, dedication, states, practices, reality, and purity. Those are the kind of the filters that he keeps in mind while he's going, right? So all day long, after lunch, what do we do after lunch? Sadonam sanya sanputo jijurnan. As soon as I do that, you know what happens to the monks and nuns? They start to salivate. Lunch. No, it's night. Lunch is tomorrow. Okay. So that's a transference. It's a dedication. It's where we say, thank you for the food. They who practice making offerings will certainly obtain their reward, right? You're giving Dharma back for the donors. So that's a dedication. As soon as we're done with the lecture tonight, we're going to go, every living being. That's a dedication. So clearly, throughout the day, we're doing this all day long. The Bodhisattva at the 6th transference can do it the way the Buddhas would do it, with the mind like a mirror. So he doesn't have to form a thought. It's just, there's no break between living beings and him. He or her, his mind, her mind is just totally connected in space. There's no fences in space. So that kind of dedication really goes out everywhere. And he's able to kind of feed living beings with the goodness that he or she cultivates. Okay, let me translate that. 这个第6回向呢，是跟第十行十地品一样的。怎么说呢？就到第6个地步啊，这个就跟着这个波罗蜜法，你们知道哈，就是布施啊、持戒啊、忍辱、精进、禅定、般若智慧。到第6呢，他的这个回向的菩萨，他的心不同。怎么样呢？他呢已经经过第1到第5，第5呢是禅定，他打坐，哎呦，就一下就正定正摄三昧，他有三昧 samadhi 就可以了。那么 samadhi 他的心不同，以前从第1地步到第5个地步呢，他要作意，他要用分别心，用得很恰当。分别是好像什么？好像学语言，你要学西班牙话，你要学一些生字，还有文法，还有那个口音啊等等，分别切得更小更小，一块一块。到了第6个地步呢，你的心以后就不再分别，现在变成像一面镜子，像佛陀的眼光。那个时候回向呢，你不动心呢，一样那个功德就往外传，它能这样子哇度众生。OK， 所以呢，就说菩萨现在有10个地步了，就说他现在随顺什么佛法智菩提意回向境界恒还有真实主，这样子还有清净。所以呢，就是等于 filter 一个过滤，每次回向它就经过这10个filter， 就他所回向的功德更对机，更正确，就跟众生连结。为什么呢？因为现在菩萨呢没有我相，这些执着在空中没有了，所以呢，他跟众生的心就是一个这样子的你回向那就不一样。那么他不是这样开始，他一开始是什么样呢？就像我们每天，你们今天回向多少次？你们想想看，每个不同的行门是不是不同的回向呢？愿以此功德也是一个就说所谓不施者必获其，也是另外一个。今天我们三皈五戒呢，受归功德殊胜都是回向，种种的回向的法门，慢慢的你就真的会，你就有本事了。你回向每次因为心量没有障碍，没有执着了，所以那个回向的功德往外传度众生都有份了跟众生有善法缘。So 我们越回向，我们越有众生可度。So it's really true that the more we practice transference, the more we're connected to living beings whom we can take across, and then we are closer to our own Buddhahood, because that's the job of the Bodhisattva, is to establish wholesome affinities and then use those to teach. Dedication of merit is just going out and collecting living beings to bit by bit. They trust you, the things you say, they listen to you, they want to follow you, and you help them wake up. All right, next. I'm going to give you, let's see here. Wow, this is a long chunk, so buckle your seatbelts and we'll repeat after me. Ready? 佛子菩萨摩诃萨如是回向，此为了达一切诸法，此为成事一切诸佛， 无有依佛而不成事，无有依法而不供养，无有依法而可灭坏，无有依法而可乖为，无有依法 I'm sorry 错了，无有一物而可贪着，无有依法而可厌离，不见内外，一切诸法有少灭坏，唯因缘道，法力具足，无有休息。Okay, done. Let's see, this is a long section, so I'll give it to you sentence by sentence. There's a lot of repetition. Here we go. Disciples of the Buddha. When bodhisattvas, mahasattvas make dedications in this way, they do so in order to comprehend all phenomena and serve all Buddhas. There is not a single Buddha on whom they do not attend. There is not a single Dharma to which they have not made offerings. Okay, that's good, hang in there. There is not a single phenomena that they find destructible. There is not a single phenomenon that they find contradictory. There is not a single thing worth being greedy about. There is not a single thing worth loathing. They do not see any phenomenon, whether internal or external, that perishes or decays in the slightest, or that contradicts the principle of causes and conditions. Fully empowered by the Dharma, they never rest. Okay, there is a bunch of deep thinking here, so let me see if we can unpack it to appreciate what this says about the Bodhisattva. Okay, so our Bodhisattva has been dedicating merit, and it changed him. He's different now. He's really good at it. And look, when Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas make dedications in this way, they do it to comprehend all phenomena and serve all Buddhas. Okay, that's Buddhist code. That is code language. Let's decode it. What does that mean? When Bodhisattvas when they transfer their merit, they want to understand everything. They want to completely understand the world around them and the people and living beings in it. And they want to understand themselves. And this is a real Avatamsaka state, right? They want to serve all Buddhas. What is that? So think about what it would mean to serve a Buddha. Have you ever served anybody? Have I ever served anybody? Maybe a sick person? Maybe it was your parents when they rarely displayed any illness. They let you see them weak at all or needy, ever. To be able to serve someone is very humbling. I know, I won't mention his name, but he's a layman, one of Shifu's oldest disciples. Both his mother and his father got to a stage in Alzheimer's where they couldn't take care of themselves. And yet this layman, on his own, took care of them to the very end, including changing their diapers. His parents were in their 90s, right? But they lost control of their bowels and their body movements. And he had to change them, bathe them, feed them, and he did so for a year, in both cases, happily. He was happy to get the opportunity to take care of them the way they took care of him. what an amazing, we were watching him do this, and he would every day drive his car up to his parents' house and take care of him after work, you know. So serving somebody is often you have to really put yourself down because it's not cool, it's not hip, it's not neat, it's a mess. And you have to get right in there with all of the reality of the body as somebody passes on, you know, they can't take care of themselves anymore. And to be able to serve in this way, what do they say? That is a supreme field of blessings. So much goodness comes to you because you have to let go of your ego to do this. You have to really put yourself under the need of another human being's needs, their body, right? And it is so good for your cultivation. Not only our layman did this, but there's a monk in the Ajahn Chah tradition, Ajahn Viradhammo. He's an old disciple, one of the first of the early generation. I think he's Ajahn Sumedho's same age. And he also, turns out his mother up in Canada was no longer able to take care of herself, and there was no money for hiring a caregiver, so he did it himself. He extended the house, and one end of the house was his pure abode, the other end of the house was his mother's home, and every day he took care of his mother. And it took him, I guess, a year plus, and he said, best cultivation I ever did, he said. That was his response. She passed away, and very peacefully, and very pleased with her son, the monk, the bhikkhu, who took care of her every need, you know. And how difficult that is to be able to do that. He was already in his 50s when that happened. His mother was, I guess, in her 80s. And so he said that was the best cultivation he ever did. So, okay, we translate that into serving all Buddhas. Now, what's it like to serve a Buddha? And you could say that, what do they call a parent? The Buddha in the home, right? Tang Shang Zhen Fu, right? The Buddha in your home. But here the Bodhisattva actually serves Buddhas, not a theoretical, kind of a metaphorical Buddha. And just think what that must be like. To be able, how would you serve a Buddha? You bring him, you know, tea in the afternoon, or what would you do? Help him wash his bowl after lunch or something. I don't know how Buddhists are very needy, so how do you put yourself in line to serve the Buddhas? The sutra doesn't say, but one thing would be to attend their lectures and then do what they say. Serve a Buddha by actually listening to their teachings and going and doing it. That would be a pretty good offering to a Buddha. But anyway, serving, what an amazing, amazing experience it is to actually put effort into helping someone else. Our marketplace world celebrates helping yourself first and only. You only go around once in this life, grab for all the gusto you can get. Right? Selling beer that way, yeah. So here's the sutra saying, no, bodhisattvas dedicate merit to understand everything in the world and then go serve the Buddha. Get those priorities straight. 这样子呢，菩萨他为什么会向呢？他会向，因为要了解一切法，明白一切法，他就什么都懂。外在的世界，内在的人我世界上一切众生，他一清一楚，没有法他不懂。然后呢，他又要服侍诸佛怎么说？中文就叫等等等，无主会上位那是承事一切诸佛。承事呢不容易那个我们各位呢，你们有没有遇到机会承事诸人？有没有？这是不容易遇到的，真正的福天，无上的福天。 我们就师父有一个美国弟子，一个老弟子，先是他母亲坐轮椅，然后呢，每一次要上厕所都要把他抬起来，因为他自己的腿是不能动。然后呢，母亲要睡觉，要把他从那个轮椅抱起来，这样是几年了。然后呢，母亲就往生了。以后呢，父亲一样的，他是老年这个神经衰弱，他就痴呆症啊。那么这个弟子呢，就每天给爸爸换衣服，这个每天给爸爸喂饭，他心里一点都不变，他就很欢喜，很恭恭敬敬的来服侍他父亲。他说：“我1岁2岁，我父母就这样子交代我，我应该交代他，他需要了所以呢，这是难得机会无上福天，不容易这样做的那么我们另外认识一位南传的叫阿准比尔达姆，他母亲在加拿大也是这样子，需要人照顾他一切。那么他们没有钱雇人，阿准比就搬到加拿大，跟他母亲一起住。这个房子的一边是他的道场，房子另外一边是母亲住的地方。他每天去为他父母一切都付出付出一切照顾。然后呢，阿准比尔达姆说，这是我一辈子修行最好的方法。为什么呢？因为这样子呢，这个一个人的需要，老年就身体不合作了。你能这样做呢，必须要把自我放下。这样子服侍人呢，你真的要把自己看得不如对方这么重要，他们的需要重要，你的喜欢你的habits 什么的都放下为法忘去，舍己为人，真的舍己为人，那不容易，不容易。这个机会呢不容易。那么菩萨呢，他对佛呢没有这种的必要，所以呢，应该怎么样成事呢？我们的应该把他的那个钵洗吃完了饭来给佛陀洗钵，换鞋子洗他的脚，应该不容易 serve all Buddhas。不过我们就可以想想看，有这个机会呢，菩萨愿意。Okay, so now there's 10 things that the Bodhisattva doesn't. This is interesting. There's like double negative. There's not one Buddha whom they refuse to attend. Okay, so you got 2 negatives. You could say it positively, they attend all Buddhas. Every chance they get. When they find a Buddha, they go serve the Buddha. Okay? Next, there's not a single Dharma to which they had not made offerings. Okay, we decode that, which means they make offerings to Dharma. What? How do you make offerings to Dharma? Dharma doesn't have a body. Okay, what does that mean? It means they cultivate it the way their teacher taught it. They really make an offering of what? Their time, their consciousness, their breath, their attention, their effort. That's an offering to the Dharma, to a practice. If you switch Dharma to practice, then it makes sense. They really, the phrase in Chinese is 为法忘躯. You forget yourself to serve the practice, to serve the Dharma. Okay, double negative, there's no phenomena they find destructible. What? There's not a single phenomena they find destructible. Okay, all dharmas are indestructible. Okay? All dharmas are indestructible. Next, there's not a single phenomena that they find contradictory. So, in other words, all dharmas are smooth. All dharmas flow. There's not one that is contradictory. So in other words, all dharmas connect. Okay, good. There's not a single thing worth being greedy for. Now there is advice. That's wise. That's one you can take to the bank. Okay, there's nothing worth being greedy for. Right on. Next, there's nothing worth loathing. Nothing to hate. Right there in the Avatamsaka Sutra, there's nothing, what are you greedy for? Once you got it, are you happy? Right? That's they say that's the ninth kind of suffering. There's the suffering of seeking and not getting. Then there's the suffering of seeking and getting. Because then you regret it. It's called buyer's remorse. Oh man, it's not what I wanted. I'm so disappointed. So, nothing worth being greedy for. And number two, write this one on my forehead. There's nothing worth hating. If you loathe something, does it make you happy to loathe it? No, your mind is all poisoned, negative. So, Avatamsaka Sutra, man. They do not see any phenomena, inside or outside, that perishes or decays in the slightest, or that contradicts the principle of causes and conditions. This is amazing stuff. It's like universal wisdom. There's nothing inside or outside that decays, except everything. So again, this is the Buddha's wisdom. From the point of view of prajna, you can be patient when dharmas no longer arise, they don't change. That's a lofty state. For us, we're in the world of change, everything decaying. So, nothing contradicts the principle of cause and conditions, right? Causes and conditions apply. It's at no point do you say, oh, well, I got away with it. The Buddha wasn't watching when I told that lie, right? And then the last line, fully empowered by the Dharma, they never rest. We saw our teacher do that. Yeah. Fully empowered by the Dharma, they never rest. At this point, because the self is gone, these bodhisattvas just keep going. Saving living beings is what they do, and they get closer to their own Buddhahood. Okay. 有10个，没有一尊佛，没有一个法，没有一个how does it go? 就说无有一法不成事，无有一法而不供养，无有一法而可灭坏，无有一法可乖违，无有一法无二可谈招，无有一法而可厌离，不见内外，一切诸法有少灭坏，唯因缘当，法力具足，无有休息。你看菩萨这样子一点都不休息，他的我相我见现在很轻，甚至于没有了。因为这个关系呢，不休息了，度众生就是他最喜欢做的事，何必休息呢？何必停？不必了，他就是为了满他自己菩提愿，所以去做。好的 ，OK。I cut the translation of that last one a little short, but these are, this is a wonderful section, the end of the 6th transference. Let me do one more sentence and we'll quit for the sutra and go to the story. Ready? Here we go. 再一句佛子 Ready? 大家来佛子是为菩萨摩诃萨第六随顺，兼顾一切善根回向。All right, disciples of the Buddha, this is the Bodhisattva Mahasattvas' 6th dedication, the dedication that abides in accordance with and fortifies all good roots. All right, okay. Wow, it's so nice to hear the Avatamsaka Sutra coming back from all of you in the hall. It's so rare to hear our voices reciting the Avatamsaka Sutra. How neat. Okay, that's the end of the prose. There's a little more. They say why he does it. But next week, we will be getting to the verses. And when we do the verses, we'll probably add a melody because they're meant to be sung. This is chanted originally. 那就快结束我们的第6回向的长行。应该下个礼拜我们都把最后一点就到了重诵了。重诵的时候本来就是唱的，所以我们可以加一个调子去唱。Okay, we're going to move on now. Time to move on to the story. And the way the story goes, I wish we had, if we had the screen, y'all could see our story, but we don't. That's all right. The Chinese is very terse. It's powerful Wenyan, classical Chinese. So my reading of it is really slow, but I prepare in advance so I get the tones right at least. And this is the Chinese that not many people in the world these days pay attention to. It's scholar stuff, but it carries the story. And then we'll explain it. We'll read it in English. 这是玄奘那个不是玄奘上人，这是玄奘法师的传记用文言文我提前就把不认识的字就抄一抄，因为这个是不是很容易读的。可是他呢有他自己的威风，自己的力量在那个古文呢，所以我们还是保持这个古文。Okay, I'm going to read. This is a long section, and for the English speakers, I apologize for giving you minutes of Chinese, and it's also classical text. But this story is just incredible, so it's really worth it. Here we go. 时行百余里，师道迷也马全不得，下水欲饮，待众失手复之。千里行思，一照思庆，又是路，盘回不知所去，乃欲东归，换地四风，行10余里，自念我先发愿，若不知天竺，终不动归一步。今何故来？宁可就西而死，岂归东而生。你们各位注意那点，那就是玄奘大师那个最深的这个愿就在那里。好，他又说：欲是宣胚转念观音，西北而进，是时四顾茫然，人鸟俱绝，叶子妖妻举火，烂若翻星，昼子劲风涌沙，散入时雨。虽亦如是，心无所惧，但苦水尽，何不能潜？是时4夜5日，无一地沾喉，口腹干焦，喜降云绝，不复能进，水卧沙中，默念观音。南无观音菩萨，南无观音菩萨，南无救护大慈大悲救苦救难观世音菩萨。随目不舍，其菩萨曰：玄奘此行不求财力，无计名誉，但为无上正法来耳。仰为菩萨慈念春生，以救苦为目，此谓苦以宁不知也。你可以听他这样子求观音菩萨。如是告时，心无措，至第5夜半，忽有凉风处身，冷快 如木含水，遂得目明，麻宜能起，体际苏习，得少睡眠。即于睡梦中，意大神，掌数丈，直己回曰：何不强行而更我也？那就是观音菩萨的化身。法师静悟静发，行可10里，马忽然异路，置之不回。径数里，忽见青草树木，下马此时，去草10步，欲回转，又到1尺，水干澄净澈，继而就饮，生命重全。人马俱得苏息，即此因非救水草，故是菩萨慈悲为生，其智成神通神，皆此类也。即就草池1日听息，后日成水，驱草尽发，更尽2日，方出流沙到夷吾夷那个国家，此等危难百千不能备去。Okay, that's it. That's a long section. Sorry about going on and on, but it's really an amazing. This is the miracle, and this is also the place where we get to hear Master Shuenzhuang's real vow. This is the vow that everybody remembers. Okay, close that. Close that. And pick up this. Here we go. Okay, ready? Beyond this place was the Mohayen Desert. It's the Taklamakan Desert, which stretched more than 800 li. This was what the ancients called the river of sand. There was no birds flying above. There were no beasts roaming below. Neither was there water or grass. Now the master had only his lonely shadow traveling with him, and all he could do was repeat the name of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva and recite the Prajna Paramita Heart Sutra, particularly the mantra, Jedi Jedi Bolo Jedi. Formerly, when the master was in the region of Sichuan, he saw a sick man suffering from a foul skin ulcer, dressed in rags. He saw this guy who stunk. His body was covered with boils and he stunk. Nobody would go near him. With a feeling of pity, Master Xuanzang took the man to the monastery, gave him money to buy clothes and food. Being ashamed of himself, the sick man taught Master Xuanzang the sutra, which he often recited. So he learned the Heart Sutra from an invalid. There's service, right? He was serving this person. In the desert, he met evil spirits with strange appearances that surrounded him and refused to be dispelled completely, even though he recited the name of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. So, saying out in the desert, there are all these weirdos, apparitions seeming like ghosts and demons surrounding him all the time. Master Xuanzang goes, Namo Guanxin Pusa, no help. They get closer. But as soon as he uttered the sutra, all of them disappeared immediately. It was by depending on this sutra that he was saved from many peril. Which sutra? Bolo bolo mido shinding guanzidai pusa xingsheng bolo bolo mido shujiaoyan. Right? Jedi jedi bolo jedi. Gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhiswaha. That was what worked. How about that? After having traveled for more than 100 Chinese miles, that's like 35 miles, he lost his way. He couldn't find Wild Horse Spring, which where he had to go to get any water. When he took his water bag down from the horse to have a drink, it was so heavy it slipped from his hands, and the water that was going to sustain him during his journey of 1,000 miles was spilled and lost all at once. Oh no. He lost his way in the winding path. He didn't know which direction to proceed. So he thought, well, I could always go backwards to the 4th watchtower. And so he did. He turned around and went back about 3 miles. Then he said, no, I vowed not to turn back even 1 step to the east before I reached India. Why am I going back now? I would rather die on my way to the west than return to the east and yet live. Okay, how does that, that's one, right? Does that kind of make your hair stand on end? That's his vow. That's the famous vow that comes out of this story. That's why I wanted people to hear it again. We did this before, but you want to hear it again. He said, even though chances are I'm not going to make it, I would rather die with my face towards India than retreat 1 step back to China. That's resolve. Okay, so he reined back his horse, turned again towards the northwest, and recited the name of Guanyin Bodhisattva. He looked around, he saw nothing but the vast desert. There's no people, no birds. In the night, the evil spirits and the demons sparkled as brightly as stars in the sky. During the daytime, surprising gales blew the sand high up in the air, and the sand fell down like rain. Although he encountered such circumstances, he had no fear in his mind because his vows were to get the Dharma. The trouble was lack of water. He was so thirsty, he couldn't move forward. For 4 days and 5 nights, for 4 nights and 5 days, he had not a single drop of water to moisten his throat. His mouth and stomach dried up. Being at the brink of death, he could no longer move forward. So, what do you do in a situation like that? He lay down on the sand and repeated the name of Guanyin Bodhisattva. He didn't give up the recitation of Guanyin's name, even in such a desperate situation. He prayed to the Bodhisattva and he said, I am undertaking this journey not to get rich, not to get a reputation. I am coming only to get the right Dharma that I made this vow to go to India. I sincerely pray the Bodhisattva will have mercy upon all living beings and save those who are in distress. I am now in distress. Please do you hear my prayers? That's the quote. So he prayed in this manner, and his mind was concentrated with no other thought. And at midnight on the 5th day, a cool breeze suddenly came and made him feel as chilly as if he was taking a bath in cold water. He was able to open his eyes, and his horse also stood up. Being refreshed by the cool air, he fell asleep for a while, and he dreamed. He saw a giant deity, it says, a shen, a spirit, several tens of feet tall, holding a spear and a flag in his hands, scowling. In a loud voice, the spirit said to him, why are you sleeping here instead of moving forward? In a dream. So the master was startled and awakened from his sleep, and he proceeded on his journey. Mind you, 5 days, no water. Having gone for about 10 miles, 10 Chinese miles, 3 miles, his horse suddenly changed his course and would not turn back, pulling hard at the reins. So now even his horse is running away. However, the horse, a few feet further on, caught sight of a stretch of pasture several acres wide. Master Xuanzang dismounted to graze the horse on the grass. 10 steps beyond the pasture, he was going to turn back, but he found in front of him a pond of clean, sweet water. He knelt down to drink, and his life was saved. Both he and his horse were invigorated. The text says, one could conjecture that this pasture and the water pond had not been there before, but were produced out of compassion by Guanyin Bodhisattva. His sincerity of mind communicated with the divinities. This was one of many such instances. He rested for one day at the pasture in the pond, and after refilling his water bag, he gathered some grass, continued his journey on the following day. Traveling for 2 more days, he came out of the desert and he reached the country of Yiwu. The hardships he experienced were numerous and cannot be related in full detail. All right, that is worth retelling, wouldn't you say? So I remember there was a NHK, the Japanese National Television network, back in the 80s. They were moved, like so many people have been, by this pilgrimage. And so they said, we'll get our best documentary team, we'll get, there was no GPS back then. They said, we'll get the best compasses. There's still, we can do reckoning by satellite. We'll get jeeps and we'll get camels and we'll fund it, get a lot of material and equipment, and we will follow his path. We will walk the roads that Master Xuanzang walked, and we will trace his steps and video. We'll make a documentary about this wonderful Chinese pilgrim. Well, guess what? On day 6, they got lost and couldn't find their way. They couldn't, the sand kept blowing, and they wake up in the morning and everything was different. They couldn't find their way. They finally actually quit. They said, how did this monk with one old, skinny, red horse, how did he make it across the Taklamakan on foot, right? If it wasn't for Guanyin Bodhisattva's compassion, it wouldn't happen. So, my goodness. It worked for Master Xuanzang, it worked for Shifu, it worked for our teacher. Shifu's stories of rescue from Guanyin began early in his life. That was when he had a dream of walking over a dangerous road, and Guanyin appeared. Our Shifu was a young man. Guanyin appeared wearing a straw hat and sandals and said, turn around, look. And Shifu turned around and there was this whole line of people behind him. And the Bodhisattva said, those are beings with whom you have affinities and you will be their guide in the future. So you have to walk very carefully. Don't fall into the ruts in the road. So Shifu woke up and sure enough, he felt happy. So Guanyin Bodhisattva is listening and available for us if we call on her. Doesn't fail. So it was true for Shifu, it's true for Master Xuanzang, it's true for us. The other thing is young people, kids, really connect with Guanyin, and if you forget, I don't see any young people in the hall tonight, maybe a few, but maybe you forgot what it was like to be smaller than everybody. When mom and dad turned off the light in your bedroom, you were sure there was something under the bed or maybe in the closet, and you were scared, right? That wasn't that long ago. Kids, everything in the world is bigger than we are when we're young. That's the perfect time to introduce them to a big friend. All they have to do is say, Namo Guanyin Usa. And if they see you do it, they will imitate. They'll learn by watching you. Monkey see, monkey do, right? And then they truly have a big friend. And Guanyin is very compassionate with children. So that's an excellent practice to get them connected to something that actually works, right? It actually works to calm their fears. So children's minds not being as cynical as the adults, that's a perfect age to teach, give them a new friend. Right, a big friend. 就说玄奘大师呢，他念观音菩萨就得度了，得救了。然后呢，我们知道师父呢，玄公上人呢， 他年轻的时候就遇到在梦中梦到一个慈悲的一个妇女，戴着一个草帽子就看到师父了。那个马路不好走，很危险。那个慈悲的妇女就说：“你转头看到后边，哇，很多人跟随师父。”那个妇女就说：“这是跟你有缘的众生，你将来都要带着他们到安全的地方去，所以你好好走，不要怕。”商人梦醒了，就原来是观音菩萨所以呢，师父的跟观音菩萨的关系呢，也是可想而知的那么我们呢，也应该尽量的有机会就念观音菩萨。有孩子，年轻的孩子教他们念观音菩萨声好，就是他们的心里很润很容易接受的。尤其他们看家长念观音菩萨，告诉他们这是你的大朋友，你什么时候晚上害怕看黑暗就怕 afraid of the dark， 你就念南无观音菩萨那么观音菩萨就会照顾年轻人了。所以我们能这样子给小朋友们介绍一个大的朋友观世音菩萨，这是很好的方法，给他们种善根，慢慢的他们都会就学习佛法Okay, so the time has come. We spent some time getting our connection here. We will learn how to do it over time. Next week, we're going to continue. We'll be on Zoom only. I'll be back in the East Bay. But I hope we have 102 people listening tonight on Zoom and more on YouTube. We're listening in English, Chinese, and Vietnamese, so how lucky that this is the 28th observance of our teachers entering Nirvana. And here we are in the Buddha Hall. We're still here and we're growing. We're listening to the Flower Garland Sutra and trying to make it connect with our real lives. How wonderful is that? Okay, 加油，南无观音菩萨。We're going to transfer the merit, and let's do that first. And I will bring up on the screen here, on my Zoom screen, so folks who are watching online can see the Buddha. Can we all stand? I'll turn around, and we can. Those of you who have a bowing cushion can do a full bow. I'll do half bows from here. 那么我们现在就会相公的哈。Let's see, I need to share my screen first. Let me do that. We can see the Buddhas. We will hold on here. Here we are. Okay. So can we use the English transference and send your dedication far and wide? 我们现在用英文来回向，用心来做法布施。May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Second bow. And third bow. Amitofo, that'll do it for us for tonight. See you all next week.